Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel Query Solution. So it's a third and very important session on the chapter Control and Coordination, and in today's video we are going to discuss about the human brain and the human nervous system. So don't get confused with regards to all these flowcharts that you can draw here. This is the simplest way how I will be explaining you about the human brain structure and the different types of nervous systems that we have in our body. So let's start with our video. So let us first of all understand what are the important parts of the human nervous system, and then we will study the different types of the nervous system. So as you can see, when we talk about the human nervous system, there are three important parts which are involved into it. The first important major organ is the brain that we already know. The second important major organ is the spinal cord again, which we know. And the third important organ are the nerves, which are associated all throughout our nervous system. So don't get confused, children, when we use the keyword neuron and nerve. So neuron is basically your single structural and functional unit of your nervous system. And a group of neurons basically is what makes up your nerve. So don't get confused here. And if we are talking about nerves here, means we are talking about the group of neurons mainly, which are helpful in conducting the messages or the information from one part of the nervous system and connecting it with the effector organs of our body. So I'm sorry. So when we talk about the different nerves, basically these nerves are actually being studied, or we can study these nerves based on their two different types. So the first type of nerve that we can study is based on their location, means from where these nerves are originating. So based on location, we have got actually two types of nerves that you need to know. The first one are the cranial nerves and the second one are the spinal nerves. So I hope you can figure out the difference between the both. Cranial nerves are the one which are getting associated from the brain or which are originating from the brain, and spinal nerves actually are the nerve kits which are actually originating from the spinal cord. So based on location or their point of origination, we have got two different types of nerves, cranial nerves and the spinal nerves. Now based on function, like what functionality are they performing, mainly to which part of the body they are getting messages from, or to which part of the body they are sending the messages to. So based on this part, if we see, then there are three different types of nerves. It is exactly the same as we have seen in the case of neurons. So the nerves can be sensory nerve, and the function is also same, that these are the one which are going to send the message to the central nervous system. Then we have got motor nerves which are going to send the message to the different effector organs of our body. And then we have got relay nerves, and we know that these are the connecting link between the sensory nerves and the motor nerves. So I hope with this flowchart we are clear that what are the different parts and components of the human nervous system. Now based on this, let us study that what are the different types of nervous system that we have in our body. So when we study the types of nervous system, there are actually two main types of nervous system that we have. The first, which is the central part, means which comes under the central body part of our body. So that's why we say this as the CNS, or it is also known as the central nervous system. Now I want just to pause over here, children, and tell you a thing. You have to be careful regarding these abbreviations which are here. The CNS, PNS, ANS, all these important keywords also are asked in exam to elaborate. So you should be very well aware that CNS is something which is known as the central nervous system. So as we stated, what is going to come under the central part of nervous system? So the two important major organs, what it includes. The first one is your brain and the second one is your spinal cord, right? Now since here we have studied about all the different types of nerves and its location, and nerves do play a very important part, children, because these are the nerves which are actually connected to all the different body parts. These are the ones which are getting associated with the effector organs and getting all the action completed which is processed by your brain and spinal cord. So all the nerves actually which are there, they come under the PNS part, which is also known as the peripheral nervous system. It includes all the nerves mainly which are your arising either from the cranial nerves or the spinal nerves, but all the nerves which are there, they come under the peripheral nervous system. Now we do know again, these nerves are going to complete some action. Some actions are going to be involuntary, means they cannot be under our control, and some actions are going to be voluntary, that is they can be under our control also. So those actions of the nerves which are involuntary in nature comes under your autonomic nervous system, and those actions of the nerves which are voluntary comes under the somatic nervous system. So I hope you guys are clear with the types as well. The central nervous system or CNS, including brain and spinal cord, being the central important component of nervous system, and then all the nerves which comes under the peripheral, if they are getting associated with involuntary actions, comes under the autonomic nervous system, and if these are associated with the voluntary action, then it comes under the somatic nervous system. So I hope we are clear till here. Now, next, talking about the very important question, the very important concept of this entire chapter, which is the human brain. So let us understand this thing with the help of a well labeled diagram. And as I always say, do check out the playlist How to Draw Diagram. That's the name of the playlist, where you can see all these diagrammatic videos as well, that how these diagrams are drawn. So you can check out that playlist for a detailed information on diagram. So when we talk about human brain, children, we do know that human brain is, first of all, is what we can study under three major important parts. The first one being the frontal part, which is known as the forebrain. The second one being the middle part, which is known as the midbrain, and the third one being the lower part, which is what is known as the hindbrain. So based on grade 10 CBSE NCERT syllabus, children, this is exactly what you need to know. There is no detail, not less of a detail and not more of a detail as well. This is actually the detail what you guys need to be aware about. So when we talk about forebrain, what all parts does it include? So it includes parts like cerebrum, it includes parts like thalamus, and then it includes parts like the hypothalamus. And this is what is the labeling of the entire diagram that you can see. So we do know, kids, where is our brain located? So I hope you all know, right? It's there in your head region. You guys can touch it right now also and feel that there is a hard bony socket mainly. The skull is what we talk about, and inside these bony sockets, where actually our 8 bones are getting fused together, is what is placing this important organ inside, which we are calling as our brain. So the frontal important part of the brain is what we say as the cerebrum. We'll talk about the functions in detail one by one, but here I'm only explaining you the structure. So this hard covering that is there is something that we say as cranium, where we are saying that almost 8 bones are getting fused together to form this entire structure of cranium, and inside the cranium is what we have our brain mainly located, which is protecting mainly in our brain also. So this brain that you can see has this outer frontal part. You might have seen brain diagram in videos, right? You might have seen such a tubular folded structure, and these folded structures, children, are exactly what here we are talking about as the frontal part of the brain known as the cerebrum. So this is the first important part of the brain. Then we have got parts which are thalamus and the hypothalamus. So this region, this frontal part, all the foldings is what we say as the cerebrum area. This area that you can see over here, the brown colored area, is what we say as the midbrain part, and just below to brown midbrain over here, this is the part which is known as the hypothalamus of the brain. Okay. Talking about these three areas over here. So where are your pons? So this little bulged area that you see is what is your pons. Just below to it is what you see your medulla oblongata, and this yellow thing that you can see over here is the part which is known as your cerebellum. And all these three parts, children, make up the lower areas of your brain, which is also known as the hindbrain area. And we do know that then through our brain over here, just a rough diagram, through our brain, this is the spinal cord that originates out. So from this hindbrain area of the brain, basically here we see the origination of spinal cord coming into picture. And another very important labeling, the pituitary gland, which is also known as the master gland. We'll talk about this when we'll talk about the endocrine system, but you should guys be aware that pituitary gland also has its location within the brain itself. So these are all the important headings based on grade 10 children that I have explained you. If something is not here or something is not there, it's because based on NCERT you don't need to study that. So this is exactly as much what you need to know based on grade 10 exam. So since now we have studied the structure of brain, the three different parts also, now let us quickly check out all the important functions which you guys have to be aware about each of the part of the brain. So let's see that. So as you can see here, I have penned down all the important functions with regards to all the important parts of the brain, and the detailing of the function children is as much which is covered in NCERT. So as I'm speaking again, I'm not covering extra and neither I'm covering less. This is exactly what you need to know with regards to your grade 10 exams. So as we know, the human brain, just now as we discussed its structure, so it consists of meninges, which are also known as the membranes, and there are three meninges when we talk about the human brain. And in between these meninges is what we see, a fluid which helps in protecting the brain from mechanical injury, and this fluid is something which is known as CSF. So again, do remember its full form. It is something which is known as the cerebrospinal fluid. So now let us see the functions of all the important parts of the brain. So talking about the forebrain area or the frontal region of the brain, the first important part here which is known as the cerebrum. So we do know children, the folded structure what we have seen in the diagram is what is making up the cerebrum. This folded area is what is the cerebrum area, and we do know that if we divide this area, this divides the brain into two equal halves, the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere. So this is folded area which is the cerebrum. So let us see what functions does it do. So the first important thing, this cerebrum is responsible for controlling the voluntary action. So I want you all to make note of all these key points children, because these are very important. So cerebrum helps in maintaining the voluntary action, and as we have discussed, these are the folded structures, and we do know that folded structure basically increases the surface area of this entire structure. Now, what are the important functions this area basically do? So, it is helping basically in the activities like thinking, learning, memory, reasoning, defining any taste, defining sight, and defining the sound. So, these are all the important functions when we talk about the cerebrum area. Now, this cerebrum area also we can study under three main headings, which we are talking about it back in back. The sensory area, which actually coordinates with our sense organs and help us in understanding the different sensations. The associated area, which actually basically transfers the information from the sensory to the motor. And the motor area mainly, which coordinates with the effector organs. So these are the important functions with regard to the first important part, which is the cerebrum. Talking about the second important part which you need to know, which is the hypothalamus. Now this hypothalamus children actually controls our master gland. And what is the master gland in our body? So it's pituitary gland. Why it is known as master gland is I'll explain you under endocrine system. But do know that you have a master gland in your body which is the pituitary gland, and the pituitary gland is being controlled by the hypothalamus part of the brain. This hypothalamus via the pituitary gland actually links two important systems, as I said you, because here since we are talking about pituitary, we are 100% talking about our endocrine glands also, and also at the same time since we are talking about brain, we are talking about the nervous system as well. So via pituitary and through the hypothalamus, this actually connects our two important organ systems, which is your nervous system and the endocrine system. And what important functions basically this area does? So this area is helpful in controlling our body temperature and provides us with the sense of thirst when you feel the urge to drink water, and also makes you feel the feeling of hungriness. Okay. Talking about midbrain, so not much detail into it, but the important part that midbrain basically controls our involuntary action. So as cerebrum was controlling voluntary, the midbrain area is responsible for controlling the involuntary actions and also our cranial reflexes. So under reflex action and reflex arc, we have understood what are cranial and spinal reflexes. So I'm not discussing about it here. And also at the same times, It helps in the relay function between the forebrain and the hindbrain. So midbrain is actually a connecting link between your forebrain and the hindbrain. And talking about the last part of the brain, which is the hindbrain area. So this hindbrain, as we know, has three important parts into it, which are your pons, medulla oblongata and your cerebellum. So what does pons do? So pons is mainly responsible for regulating your respiration rate, children. And I have seen many times in exam this question is asked, which part of the brain controls your respiratory rate? So be aware, it's the pons area of your hind brain. Okay, don't just write hind brain, but write the specific part which is actually regulating this activity. Medulla oblongata also controls our involuntary actions, and actions like what? So actions like your heartbeat, like vomiting, like salivation, like swallowing and like sneezing. These all involuntary activities which we can't control is what is actually being taken care by the medulla oblongata part. And last and most importantly, children, the cerebellum. It is the structure actually which helps in maintaining the body balance. So let me give you an example. Have you ever seen a drunk person? Is the drunk person who is basically not in his control or her control mainly, can they walk properly? So you might have seen they just don't walk properly. They keep moving from this place to another place. They are not able to maintain that posture. Why? Because when a person is drunk, this is the part of the brain which gets affected, and that's why we are saying here it helps in maintaining the body posture. So I hope guys you are clear with all the important functions of the brain which you have to study with regards to your grade 10 exam. And this was all about today's video, where we have covered entire detail with regards to the NCERT textbook as per CBSE and ICSE syllabus as well. As I always say, if you have doubt, comment to me in the comment section box. I hope you guys are clear. And if you are liking the content, give a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, share it with your friends. And until then guys, as I always speak, happy learning and take care of yourself. Bye bye.